Most people think the Vatican and Mecca are just sacred cities for different religions. Here's what they miss. Both claim to represent the final revelation of God to humanity, and both shape how over half the world prays, believes, and lives. But only one points to a continuous, visible, historical foundation laid by Christ himself. This video is not a debate. It's a quiet confrontation of two spiritual centers, Mecca and the Vatican, and what their silence about each other reveals. You'll see why Islam cannot afford to seriously examine the Vatican's claims, and why the Catholic Church stands alone in offering a visible, unbroken path from heaven to earth. We'll explore what Islam says and doesn't say about Catholicism. We'll trace the biblical and historical foundation of Rome's authority. We'll contrast the core focus of each center's worship, and we'll unpack what both are really trying to answer. Who holds the keys to God? If you're interested in deepening your faith, hit like and tell me where you're watching from. And if you find this valuable, consider subscribing to stay rooted in Catholic truth. You can also support the making of these videos, our team, and the tools we use through the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen. Mecca is the heart of Islam. It is the direction Muslims face in prayer. It is the destination of the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Yet for all its global spiritual weight, Mecca rarely engages with the claims of another global city, Rome. The Vatican, built on the tomb of St. Peter, is the spiritual capital of over 1 billion Catholics. It doesn't just represent a place, it represents a person, Jesus Christ, and his visible church on earth. Islam claims to correct Christianity, yet despite this, it largely avoids wrestling with the one institution that traces its authority to the apostles, which predates Islam by centuries, and which continues to speak with one voice across every continent. Why does Mecca, which critiques the Bible, prophecy, and Christian theology, have so little to say about the very heart of Christianity's structure, the Papacy, Apostolic succession, the sacraments? If the Vatican is truly corrupted as some Islamic texts imply, why does its teaching remain consistent? Why does its worship remain centered on Christ's real presence in the Eucharist? This silence is not accidental. It reveals an unease with confronting what cannot be easily dismissed. A church that predates the Quran with a visible leader, rooted in Jerusalem and Rome, speaking a gospel unchanged by time. That sets the stage. Without the next piece, it won't hold when life gets loud. The Vatican stands on apostolic succession. Jesus said to Peter in the Gospel of Matthew, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 16:18-19. Catholics believe this authority given to Peter has been passed down through the popes. St. Ignatius of Antioch, writing in the early 2nd century, called the Roman Church the one that presides in love over the others. He accepted its primacy even before there was a formal Bible canon. St. Irenaeus later wrote that all churches must agree with the Church of Rome on account of its preeminent authority against heresies 3.3.2. Islam, by contrast, does not claim continuity from Abraham through Isaac to Christ. It claims that previous revelations were corrupted and that Muhammad was the final prophet sent to restore the truth. But this claim depends on asserting a break, not a fulfillment. The early church, documented in Acts of the Apostles and affirmed by the Fathers, did not view itself as a deviation from Judaism or a new invention. It saw itself as the full flowering of the covenant. Peter's authority, the bishop's teaching role, and the Eucharist's centrality were all in place centuries before Islam. The Catechism of the Catholic Church affirms that the Church is apostolic in her origin and structure, CCC 771. Christ founded her, and through the apostles, she remains his body on earth. The Vatican, then, is not a political empire. It is the nerve center of a sacramental body, tracing back to Christ himself. Dominus Iesus, a magisterial document published in 2000, reaffirms this. The Church of Christ subsists in the Catholic Church, which alone holds the fullness of means of salvation, Dominus Iesus, section 17, not out of pride, but fidelity to the truth entrusted to her. Good start, but unless you pair it with what's next, the practice thins out. Islam's rituals are deeply structured around geography and external observance. Pilgrimage to Mecca, facing the Kaaba in prayer, ritual washing, all focus on the body's movement and submission. worship is tied to place and performance. Catholic worship, especially the Mass, also involves ritual, but its center is different. The Eucharist is not just remembrance, it is the representation of Christ's sacrifice, CCC 1088. Heaven comes to earth, not just symbolically, but truly, sacramentally. In John 4:21-24, Jesus tells the Samaritan woman that the time is coming when worship will not be tied to a mountain, but in spirit and truth. Revelation 21:2-3 reveals the heavenly Jerusalem descending, a vision of union between God and man. At every Mass, this union becomes real. The Vatican's liturgical structure, architecture, and sacramental economy all orient the human heart, not just toward ritual obedience, but toward mystical communion. This is why Catholic worship includes silence, contemplation, Eucharistic adoration, and sacramental confession. It is not simply about what the body does, it is about what heaven is doing through the Church. And unlike Islam, Catholicism does not require speaking Arabic or facing a particular earthly direction to worship truly. It requires unity with Christ through the sacraments He instituted. If you'd like daily Catholic resources right at your fingertips, visit our website or scan the QR code on screen. You'll find daily Mass readings, the Seven Sorrows Rosary, devotional prayers, and Soul Search, a private web app for daily examination of conscience with guided reflections, progress tracking, and secure journaling to help you grow spiritually. This opens the door. The next part shows how to walk through it. Behind all this comparison is one silent but central question. Who holds the keys? Both Islam and Catholicism claim to have the way to God. Islam teaches submission to Allah's will revealed through Muhammad. Catholicism teaches communion with Christ through His Church, but only one offers a continuous, visible, historical authority, a church called by Christ the pillar and bulwark of truth, 1 Timothy 3:15, guided by successors of the apostles and protected by the Holy Spirit. The keys given to Peter are not symbolic. They represent authority to bind and loose, Matthew 16:19. The fathers of the church, like Saint Cyril of Jerusalem, saw this authority as lasting and real. Not every bishop is Peter, but Peter's chair continues in the papacy. Islam has no equivalent. It has religious scholars, but no central authority, no unbroken line from Abraham to Isaac, to Jesus to Peter to today. And when disagreement arises in Islam, there is no Council of Jerusalem to settle it, no Pope to clarify, no magisterium to protect the faithful. So while both Mecca and the Vatican claim to guide souls to God, only one provides a visible key, a real link between Christ's words in the first century and the Church's mission today. Keep this, and the next step multiplies it. Skip it, and it collapses. Some may object, saying, 1 billion Muslims can't be wrong, or Islam's devotion is proof of its truth. But sheer numbers aren't a test of divine revelation. Truth isn't decided by majority vote. Noah had fewer followers than the world. Jesus had 12 apostles, not armies. Others say Islam teaches peace, and the Vatican has had a violent history. That's fair to ask, but remember, the Church acknowledges her members' sins. Popes have asked forgiveness publicly. Islam, by contrast, often idealizes its early history without space for doctrinal self-correction. Finally, some might say, isn't this just about power? Number. It's about truth. If Christ rose from the dead, then what He founded matters. And He founded a church, not a book, not a tribe, not a philosophy. A visible, sacramental, apostolic church. And once you grasp the real question of authority, the silence surrounding it in other traditions makes sense. This isn't about superiority, it's about clarity. Catholics are called to evangelize with truth and charity, to know that the Vatican is not just a tourist site, it's the heart of the world's oldest functioning institution, founded by Christ, shepherded by Peter, and sustained by the Holy Spirit. If you're Catholic, learn your history. Don't just defend the Church, love her enough to understand her roots. If you're not Catholic, I invite you, read the early fathers, read the Gospels again with the question, where is the Church Christ built? Pray before the Blessed Sacrament. Ask God not for emotional confirmation, but for the grace to see truth clearly and follow it no matter the cost. If this helped you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and check out our web app for daily Catholic resources and soul search to guide your spiritual journey. Truth draws near when you step toward it.